Now we come on to our first speaker of the day, the next big thing, and it's a really exciting one. Icomat with Evangelos in Paludis. 4.8 million investment from UK Space Agency in January, and as Proculi, we're really pleased that we've dubbed the next big thing, gained the first ever investment from the NATO Investment Fund just at the start of this month. So this is super exciting. And when you see what it is, you'll know immediately why this has all the potential to be such a huge business. So I'll hand you over to Evangelos.
Hello everyone, my name is Evangelos. I'm the CEO and founder of Icomat. And our whole mission at Icomat is to deliver the world's lightest structures. And this is for anything that moves, whether it's a car, a plane, or a spacecraft, where weight is a really big problem. Especially for anything that flies, because it directly affects the payload and the fuel burn, which is a business case of these vehicles. And at Icomat, we can deliver hands down the lightest vehicles possible. And here you see some examples of drastic weight reductions that we can achieve. For example, in aerospace, we can achieve up to 65% reduced weight using the same raw material compared to the state-of-the-art processes. A little bit about how it works. So our process uses composite materials or carbon fiber. And these materials start life as textiles, what you see on the left-hand side. So they're made out of millions of very strong fibers. And the peculiarity of these materials is that they are only strong in the direction of the fiber. So the way we use them today is by stacking straight fiber layers at different orientations to get roughly the same strength in the main directions. Structures never loaded the same in the main directions, so you end up placing a lot more material than you need. And it would be far more efficient if you could steer the path of the fibers, and in such a way you could reinforce a structure only where it is needed, getting components which are not only lighter, perform better, but also require significantly less raw material. And this whole idea and methodology of fiber steering was developed in the 80s by NASA, and there's a huge body of literature on why this is better, but the big bottleneck always has been manufacturing. So it's pretty much impossible to manufacture using fiber steering today. And what we've cracked at Icomat is develop the world's first process that can actually do it without any defects. And that took us 10 years of R&D at the University of Bristol and 5 years of industrialization at Icomat. I'll show you a quick example on how you can use this to manufacture better products. This is from defense. This is the center fuselage of a fighter aircraft. Here we go. So basically we use finite element analysis, we define the fiber paths, then we print it flat using our machines, and then we stamp form it. And really the result is beautiful. It's a lighter component, cheaper component, and we can produce it 4 times faster compared to any technology out there. And now we're in the process of scaling up the business. So what you see on the top right-hand side is our current facility in Bristol, 10 minutes from here, where we've got 2 cells which can produce components. Now we're opening up our first factory, which is gonna be in Gloucester, 40 minutes from here. This will be operational by the end of the year, and it will be fully automated, having multiple lines using our proprietary tape laying systems, able to go from raw material to finished component, paint it and inspect it. And the funding for all of this, as it was mentioned before, we got £5 million grant from the UK Space Agency to finance some of the capex for the factory, but crucially we just closed the $22.5 million Series A round. This is the biggest Series A in composites ever, led by ADVC and the NATO Investment Fund. So yeah, we're firmly into the scale-up journey, as I say. Yeah, that's it from me. Thank you. Yeah.
Well, you've sort of understated what is an extraordinary business. I just wanted to highlight one point. You say at the beginning, I love the way you introed it, as the world's lightest structures for cars, planes, and spacecraft. That's the level of ambition. So when people say, Evangelos, that it's not rocket science, it actually is, isn't it? It's quite remarkable. So let's begin with your latest news, which is this investment. I'd like to explore how it came about, what it will enable you to do, and then we'll come back into your founder's story. So 22.5 million. The name at the front is very much the NATO Investment Fund, but of course it's a conglomerate behind. So talk us through that process and what it means.
Yeah, so it's really exciting for us to have such investors on board, and it's actually the first direct investment from the NATO Innovation Fund, which I think they're managing just over 1 billion now. But actually the biggest name is 8VC. So they've got 7 billion under management. They're one of the 5 biggest funds in the world, based in Austin, Texas. So the key thing for us is we really wanted a US-based investor. And the reality is if you're in deep tech and manufacturing, it's a one-way street. You have to go to the US. So we wanted someone who could guide us through this process.
And just on that, is that for reputation? Is that for other partnerships? Or is that with an eye to an eventual exit at some point? Why is the US important in that context?
First and foremost is the customers. And, for aerospace and defense, it's the biggest market by far. Everything is moving much faster there. They're willing to take a lot more risk compared to the UK and Europe, which is more conservative. I'm generalizing here, but yeah. And there is also access to capital. Like really, if you're in deep tech and you want to build a business that will compete internationally, you need to be in the US.
We had a couple of sessions yesterday about various different funding routes, including a terrific piece from the London Stock Exchange about the different funding mechanics for founders and entrepreneurial businesses. And each time, of course, it's about preparation. Each time, of course, it's trying various routes and sometimes pushback, the need for resilience and how you find the right partner. Talk us through that narrative of how long it took to get that investment and what that process was like for you as a founder entrepreneur.
The realities took probably 1.5 years. So we started end of 2022. We went out in the market. I really had no network of investors in the US, so it was just going to conferences and trying to really bump into people.
Conferences work, do they? Who knew?
Yeah. But I failed miserably initially, so the first 3 months we realized it's not gonna work. And we did quite a radical pivot in the business. So initially our plan was to sell the machines, and then we said, okay, let's sell the components. And that's something that, fundraising is really hard. You're getting pats in the face all the time. But that's actually a good thing, because, you're getting feedback. The difficult thing is to be able to discern between, the constructive feedback and someone is just saying an excuse, because they don't want to pursue further deal. So you take that constructive feedback, and it's from people who have seen businesses their whole life, and they know what works, they know what doesn't, and you have to take that and improve the business. So for us, it was a long process, because every time we took this feedback, we kept improving and improving and improving. And at the end, I'm blowing my own trumpet here, but in every meaningful metric, we're easily top 5%, at least in our sector, and that was a result of this. And to give you an idea, the partner at the NATO Innovation Fund was a partner at DCVC. So we reached the investment committee with them, which is a big US fund, and they rejected the deal. But she liked it so much when she moved to NATO. And it was good because she told me, look, what you told me back then that you were going to do over the next year, you actually did it,
So there's two general points to perhaps pull out from that. One is that even a funding round is a learning process, and it's maybe not necessarily always good learnings, although you took many positive learnings from that. And the other is even a rejection can actually of itself result in something positive. So this person left one fund, became involved elsewhere, and then supported it. And I think that as a sort of a narrative for entrepreneurs is really interesting. So, I mean, this is the first investment, and I know they're not the absolute lead, the NATO Investment Fund. A great source of pride, a terrific sort of story in terms of marketing and profile. Does it give any extra pressure, or is that just irrelevant? It's money and it's a great source and you get on with it.
Yeah, of course. I mean, they invest because they expect a return and they expect the business to grow.
Sorry, I meant specifically NATO because it has such a problem. So NATO has never invested previously in anything, anywhere, worldwide. This is the first time. No pressure.
Yes, I think, pressure is a given in this world, and at the end of the day, you have to deliver. That's the reality, and we should never forget that. I think it more than pressure brings a lot of opportunity. So they've already connected us to the MODs, in the main countries in Europe. A tremendous brand to have supporting Icomat, and especially in the sectors that we operate.
And what an endorsement! I mean, it's extraordinary. It is extraordinary. Let's come back to an earlier stage for you, which is the the odyssey, the journey from academic world to commercial world. And your story is one of innovative commercialization of university research, essentially. So you went from studying for a PhD to creating and running and building Icomat. How was that for you? Talk us through that process.
Yeah, so I think, I came here from Greece, and I wrote it in my cover letter back then that I wanted to contribute to the field of composites, and eventually I wanted to start my own business. So I always had this in the back of my head, and that's why I picked this PhD topic. While I was running my PhD, I also had a small startup. We're manufacturing components out of carbon fiber for sports equipment. So I sort of cut my teeth there a little bit, if you will. But then it was, you really had to dive at the deep end. And at the beginning, we were on the precipice of, going bust so many times.
Really?
So the first,
How close?
I think, so to give you an idea, I'm actually the third CEO of the business. So the first CEO was an academic professor. He lasted 2 weeks. Then we got...
who thinks the academic world is not as brutal as the commercial world? That's quite remarkable. Yeah, go on, yeah.
Yeah. Then we got basically an experienced CEO, and I learned a lot from him. Couldn't raise investment. And then we had an Innovate UK grant, and they told us, look, you've got 2 months. If you don't find much fund to start the grant, we're gonna take it out. And that's the moment I became the CEO, and I had 2 months to go and raise investment. And I was, it's funny you mentioned their luck. I think it's a very big component, and people underestimate it. So the reality was I was lucky, but I also took the opportunities that came my way. So yeah, the first year or so was on and off.
On and off. I suspect we can all interpret that. Anyone who runs a business, you know what that means. It's a roller coaster, one way or another. You mentioned about different investments. The other one, just to highlight, is 4.8 million just in January from the UK Space Agency. And again, obviously the money, that's the rocket fuel, as it were, but also the reputation. Immediately, if the UK Space Agency is, it says something immediately about the business. How did that one come about? And talk about that, what you use those proceeds for.
Yeah. So actually, we got the heads up from our chairman. He's the previous CEO of Thales Alenia Space in the UK. So he's well connected, and he told us, look, this is coming up. We wrote a pretty good proposal, and what I've been told is that the UK Space Agency recognized that if you really want to have a space industry in the UK, you need a supply chain. And at the moment, there is really no one manufacturing structures out of carbon fiber. And the overwhelming message from the industry was, 70-80% of what we do should be carbon fiber, and there's no one to do it. And that's the gap that they want to fill. At the same time, that's very, very important. It's really difficult to build another Me Too company. We're not a Me Too company. We're doing something which is, radically better compared to what exists out there. And that's why, this endorsement for it.
Tell us, as the business scales, and it undoubtedly will with the opportunity you have, the technology you have, but also with the funding, how do you see your own role changing?
I think, now I'm learning all the time, and the reality is, you have to balance, I think, two character traits, which are a bit in antithesis. One, the reality is you have to have tremendous self-belief to be able to go through this. At the same time, you need to understand and realize what you're not good at and what you don't know, and to get the people in the team, or, to get people who can mentor you. And I've been very fortunate. I had, really good mentors. And, I was also lucky that we were able to attract some extremely talented people in the business. So, for example, we're building a factory now. I've never built a factory before. So we've got, yes,
Who knew?
But we've got now the previous CEO of Aerotron Composites, which is one of the biggest tier ones in the UK, and now he's our interim MD, and he's leading the factory build. So it's all about, getting the necessary skills in the business, because as the business evolves, my role is changing, and the skills that the business needs.
Sure. Thank you. At this point, throw it open to the audience. We've got a couple of roving mics. Please just say your name and your organisational company's name, and take anything. It's in the middle backish right. There's a description for you. And if anyone else, hold your hand up so we'll get the mic to you preparing for the second question. Yeah. Yours.
Hi, Evangelos. Thanks so much. Amazing. Congratulations to start with. Michael Legg from Azure and Health. one of the things that's been identified as being a real driver of successful ecosystems and wealth and value creation is that link between academia and business, which is something that Greg has touched on. Obviously, you're someone who's done that very well, and in the region around Bristol, there are some success stories. But what would you say we could do better here to really kind of drive? If that's one of the levers of value creation, how could we improve that?
Yeah. Obviously there are some more logistical things that could be done a lot better. So the process to spin out for us, it took us over a year, lengthy negotiation, lots of arguments, if you will. So all that thing can be smoothed out. And to be fair, I think there's a lot of progress that's been done on that front since we started. The other thing, and that's something I learned because I travel a lot now in the US, and you see how they've built their ecosystem there, and it's a participation, let's say, ecosystem. So an entrepreneur succeeds, and then he gives back to the ecosystem and builds again. And we've now have some examples of this in Bristol, like Harry de Stectura, for example. He exited his business and now he's building an incubator. We really need this, and we need the success stories. And I remember back in 2018 when I was really starting with Icomat, I was terrified, and I was like, how am I gonna do this? And I remember I read the story about Harry exiting Xylo, and I was like, maybe he did it, maybe I can do it as well. So this thing, it's like a flywheel, if you will. It will help the city in so many ways. You've got success stories, you've got funding, so we really need.
Is that a structural thing or is it a cultural thing?
Very much is a cultural thing, I would say, because take for example Bristol. They've got, hands down, they're the best in composites in the world. They've got the biggest group of PhDs. They've got the leading academics, the National Composite Center. We really are the first spin out in composites, and I think there could be a lot more. But it's not only the universities. The students don't really want to pursue this. While in the US, everybody's like, yeah, I want to start a business. So I think.
Do you think that's changing, that cultural point?
It is very much. And if you look, recently there are a lot more things coming from universities.
And just as a sidebar on that, if for those who perhaps weren't here yesterday, we had a remarkable keynote from Evelyn Welsh about the vision for Temple Campus and what that will mean for academics, for entrepreneurs and advisors. And the ambitious scale of that endeavour is that will help. It'll both reflect but also help so much that's happening. Thank you, Michael. One more question, to the front row to the right, please.
Hi, Evangelos, and congratulations, and I wish you so much more luck that you can seize on. My name's Dave Mason from Mentor Media Training, and you mentioned the National Composite Centre. It was actually going to be my question. Aviation's huge in Bristol. They've been here for some time. How come they're not doing what you're doing and out in front, if you like, on a leading edge? And is there a competition now between you being here in the West Country and the National Composite Centre?
That's a loaded question.
Sorry, I was a journalist years ago.
Okay. Their role fundamentally is different. So they want to basically take, technologies that at low TRL, mature them so that they can, go to the industry. But that's one part. The other part is they have to serve the industry. And, what Airbus wants and what GKN wants. So we're doing something different. We're bringing a disruptive technology. So I think it'd be difficult if they were trying to do this. Plus, the remit is not to commercialize. They're not actually allowed, based on how their articles are on basically producing components for the industry. So they're purely an R&D organization. So I don't see how they could do what we're doing. And our relationship is more synergistic. So they can leverage our technology to support their customers, and that works for them. It works for us as well, because then we don't have to do a lot of the initial non-recurring R&D to prove the benefits. And once something is mature at the NCC, we can go straight into production with our factory and the future factories we want to build.
Great.
Yeah, it's different.
So not perhaps in simplistic terms, not competitive as such, but there are opportunities each to leverage others' developments. Any further questions? I've got one. It's a bigger picture one for you, Evangelos, to end on. If not this, sorry, actually there are two. So middle here, then 2 minutes over perhaps, and then we'll take Simon at the front as well in a sec. So Liam, if we can have the mic down for Simon here, thanks. Yeah,
Hi.
sorry.
Hello. Charles Smith, Pointer Consultancy Group. I do a lot of work with startups and scale-ups. And you mentioned one big thing is getting the talent to help grow the business. They really struggle being able to afford that talent. Have you got any advice about how to make it more affordable or different ways to kind of blend in that talent to help that business grow?
Yeah, I think that's the reality is it's a massive challenge, and if you're scaling up rapidly, for 4 or 5 years, you're gonna double the headcount. So that puts, massive organizational stress because half the people in the business every year are new people. I think, you have to make as an attractive proposition as possible. One thing that, is really worked for us, especially with senior people on the management team, is stock options. So, we've got a really good EMI scheme. What we found is that junior people, they don't really appreciate the value of stock options. So it's
They will in retrospect, or would have done in retrospect. Yeah.
That's something I find a bit frustrating. But
there's a number of levers and a number of incentivize, I guess, that you were able to do, including being part of this quite extraordinary journey. I'm just going to truncate that if I may. Simon, your question.
Thank you very much. Simon Jones, financial planner at Unividual Limited. I picked up on something you said. During your process, you had to discern between constructive feedback and excuses why they didn't want to invest. I'm really interested if you could unpack that a little bit and how you were able to be sort of modest and self-aware enough to do that process.
Yeah, I think, it usually helps if you go second, third meeting and, they ask relevant questions and you can understand that they've really looked at the business and, some of the things that they were saying about the previous model was, it's really difficult to scale. There are a lot of barriers to sell, etc. And you have to take a good, hard look in the mirror and see, is that true or not? And then it was true. And then we had to take that on board and change. And it's really difficult. Honestly, I was terrified because you're basically, you're steering the ship to a different direction midway through funding round. And initially, these investors all went away and they said, look, okay, you're changing, so we need to see proof that this new thing is going to grow. And thank God, proof came really, really quick. But that's what I'm saying. So all the entrepreneurs really fear funding round. I fear, funding rounds because it's a shock to the system. They're going to test everything, the strength of the team. They're going to speak with the customers. But that's actually a good thing because if there are any weaknesses, they're going to come out. So you need to grab them, understand, how to fix them, and go and fix them.
It's a great big training session. It's many other things, but it's a training and a learning session. But my last question, if I may, is this. We're running towards the end of this session. Looking at the bigger picture with this investment round, there's a quote here from Volker Heistermann of the Mosaic Venture Lab in Taiwan, who said about your business, investing in lighter, stronger, and more sustainable materials, that's hitting the trifecta. This is one to watch. Innovation like this tends to have ripple effects far beyond the initial industry. So, Evangelos, you are in a sweet spot. You're increasingly in a global spotlight with opportunities for great partnerships. You've gained substantial investment, but it's still a relatively early stage and quite small business at this stage. So talk us through the plan for and the challenges of how you will execute on this propulsive growth opportunity.
Yeah. It's quite funny, actually, because that quote, I got a WhatsApp from Kelly Chen, which is the partner from NATO who invested.
Okay.
And we've hit the trifecta. Do you know who this guy is? And I'm like, I have no idea who this guy is.
Funny enough, the trifecta is something we've used as Entrecom about the trifecta value. So I was intrigued by that point. Anyway, come on, tell us the plan, the vision, the challenges.
The plan, yeah. So basically, I think number one now is building the team, and we've, as the funding round, it looked like it was gonna go through. We really started focusing on building the management team, and now we've pretty much hired all the key positions. We've got tremendous teams, really experienced people. So the plan now is scale up the business in Bristol, build a factory. The vision for that factory is to become the first lights-out factory for composites. So going from raw material to finished component, fully automated, and nothing like this exists in composites. Everything is still manual. as soon as we get this up and running, basically early next year, then we want to start looking at the US. We're either going to be in Austin, Texas or Ohio, and really building there. But long term, and that's another nugget. So when I was pitching in the UK, everybody wanted to see what you're going to do to raise the next round. When I went to the US, I didn't have much success initially. I spoke with one of the entrepreneurs there, and he told me, look, Evangelos, you're pitching the next step. What's the end game? That's what they want to see. So really the end game for us is to bring carbon fiber and composites to the mainstream. You've got the best engineering material is, in the fiber direction 26 times stronger than steel. There's nothing like it, but you don't really see it around you. And it's a niche exotic material, a little bit like what steel was in the late 1800s. Back then they used to make, knives and armor from steel, really silly things. And then Carnegie and Bessemer came along, and they did not reinvent steel. They just found a way to make it lighter and to make it cheaper. And that gave us railways, skyscrapers. Effectively, the entire industrial revolution was based on this development of steel. And in the process, they made the most valuable company in the world at the time. Now, we're at a similar point in history where you want flying cars. You want to electrify fleets across aerospace and automotive. And this is simply not possible in some cases, but certainly not sustainable. Carbon fiber can address this challenge, but there are these technology barriers that have, let's say, hindered its adoption. And that's what we want to address with Icomat. We want to eliminate those barriers and bring carbon fiber to the mainstream.
So let's just pull some of these pieces together. If you think that, on the one hand, seeing the world differently, entrepreneurs absolutely do, you each do. You seize challenges, seize opportunities, you have pushbacks, the funding round that you eloquently spoke about learning from that, but actually being pushed back and coping with that. We've got a session this afternoon on bounce back ability. The need to scale, or the opportunity to scale, to surround yourself with brilliant people, to grow out. So although this is in many ways quite dissimilar to so many businesses here, the fundamentals are exactly the same for almost any entrepreneur or business. But on the other hand, you look at this and you say, well, there really is, at the very least, the potential for a world-changing business. It is as big as that, and clearly some way down that path. It is born, founded, grown, whatever, created in Bristol. And what that says about Bristol, the nexus of academia and commercial opportunity itself, as we were talking yesterday about Bristol University, itself will have halo value to so many businesses. Evangelos, I think, on our behalf at Entrecom, from the audience's behalf, I'm sure we all wish you absolutely the best with this. It is an extraordinary endeavor. This is the next big thing. We're delighted that you've been able to talk us through today. Evangelos, thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you.